Well, welcome back. It's 7:34 and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Well, joining us to go through some of the day's headlines now is author and journalist Susan Holder and showbiz reporter and broadcaster Stephanie Tecchi. But first, let's have a look at what's made the front pages this morning.
The Daily Mail leads with their special investigation into the gang rapists deported back to Somalia.
And the Express leads with the manhunt underway for 6 terror suspects believed to be in the UK.
The Mirror has on its front page the report claiming that £100 billion of taxpayers' money has been wasted by the Tories.
And the Sun's front page features sick tweets made by I'm a Celebrity's Grace Dent against Nigel Farage.
And the Daily Star leads Boffin's claims that you could bust that beer belly by munching berries.
Now, I hope we're doing that one, because that's something that I have a great interest in. Anyway, let's go now to Suze and Steph. Why don't we kick off, Steph, with this one? An alarming headline. 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual assault on trains.
Yes, it is very alarming, and they say that in this thing in The Sun, the article, it says that most of the attacks occur between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m, which is rush hour. So let's break down what they mean by being sexually assaulted as a woman on a train. It says it could be touching, it could be a man pressing too close to you, when it gets really packed on the carriages. They've said it's upskirting. They say it's indecent exposure as well. They say 51% of victims have had other passengers intervene to their help. But when it actually comes to reporting it to the police, it actually drops down to 18%. Me, myself, I haven't been a victim of being sexually assaulted on a train. I do understand when you're a bit too on a train and everyone's packed like sardines and then you've got some horrible sweaty person behind you.
We've all had
and
that.
it just happens to be a man.
But I've had that. I've had that, and I'm a bloke.
This is what I think. It feels a bit like a bit of a loose interpretation of sexual assault. If you're on the tube in rush hour, people will be pressing up against you.
And I wonder,
it's strange to interpret that as assault.
I wonder how helpful these sort of headlines are, because straight away it gets blokes as a token bloke on the panel. I know this is a serious issue, but it gets bloke shackles up because it's like, hang on, no, I'll be, and I have been, one of the 51% who would get involved and give somebody a thump if necessary, if they're groping a woman. Like, you're not going to stand for that, right? That's what blokes should be doing. But if it's like being pressed against or being looked at, it's like, are we lessening the actual severity of a genuine assault by broadening it out too far and making men feel like they're a bit of a problem? Or is this not about men?
Well, I think it is about that. I personally haven't had that happen to me either. I am very aware when I go on public transport, though, I don't sit there with my head in a book or my AirPods in or anything like that. My son's girlfriend, they live in... I come in and out of London regularly, but they live in London. They commute all the time, and she's in her 20s, she's blonde. She's had it happen a couple of times to her. And one of the times she was sat on a tube train, there was a few people, she wasn't on her own, there were a few people around, and the man came and sat right next to her and licked her face.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Exactly. Oh, my God. And she got her head down and her AirPods on, so it shocked her, obviously, and she recoiled, and he then started kind of being aggressive with her because she was kind of backing off from him. Another man came from the other side of the couch, sat next to her, said, just talk to me, and waited till the next stop where they got off and reported.
That sort of fella, that's what we need.
Yeah.
We need other men standing in.
So these things do happen. I actually find the tube quite a courteous place. I know this is bizarre.
I know
people
what you mean.
People go after you as you're jumping through the doors, and I'm like, what do you mean after you? We haven't got time for that behaviour. Just get in. But buses are where I find you get a lot more aggro, and I don't mean sexual necessarily, but just women and men being very kind of pushy and aggressive with you and jostling. I've actually been pushed around on buses quite a few times in London, but not on the... But I think it's not kind of fair to say just because we don't happen to have those experiences, we have to recognise that it is a thing. And I think just travelling alone late at night, this is where, I do think this is where staff should be more present on tubes, on trains.
Absolutely.
I think because we don't have people going up and down because there aren't people around, then if people are behaving terribly, there's not much you can do about it.
The thing is, there are adverts on trains now. I think the reason why these cases have gone up, because I've seen on the train, they'll be like, if you feel uncomfortable, if you think you've been looked at inappropriately, please report it. And I think more women are feeling braver to come and report these cases on the train. And I think every organisation now wants to kind of make it seem that they are doing something when it comes to taking sexual assault seriously. So the trains aren't, you know, amiss from that.
One thing I think they could do to take sexual assault more seriously is to properly get the night tube up and running again in London. I think there's a huge problem with women who, you know, go out late at night. They might even be working late at night, want to get home and don't have a safe way of getting home.
And you can't get Ubers anymore in the city centre. It's very difficult.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a problem. It must be a problem everywhere. If you go out as a woman and you're trying to get home, you want to feel that those facilities are there and they're properly staffed and they're run properly.
Especially when driving in London is just so...
But also, you do have a responsibility to be aware of yourself. I mean, if I felt... I would hopefully wouldn't kind of let it get to anything. If I thought somebody was looking at me in a funny way or somebody had followed me particularly on a tube, I would get off and get the next one. I would move myself.
It's important. It's not, you know, this is bigger than London, you know. I mean, if it's a night bus, you know, if you live in most ordinary parts of Britain. And all I'm saying is, you know, these sort of conversations need to include men as part of the solution, rather than sort of treating men as part of the problem. Because that sort of bloke who sits down and says, talk to me, that's the sort of bloke you want to be.
And then gets angry with you when you say, no, I really don't want it. And that is, I mean, that's that kind of toxic masculinity thing.
It's not about...
Yeah, but hang on a sec. I want to pick up on that.
Go on.
Because the phrase toxic masculinity, it's International Men's Day, is something that really sticks in my craw. And
because you don't think it exists?
It doesn't exist. It's made up. And I'll tell you why. Yesterday, we did a huge report on knife crime, Operation Sceptre, handing in blades, and we had a young lad in, was it Andre? Andre was a youth crime representative from Coventry, you know, around your neck of the woods, and he was saying that what we need is more positive masculinity in these young lads' lives, male role models who were missing, absent fathers for whatever reasons, and actually they are then preyed upon, groomed essentially by criminals, by gangsters who see vulnerable young men and they become that alpha male. A toxic man takes over from the lack of positive masculinity. So on International Men's Day, let's hear it for positive masculinity.
That's true,
but in order minds...
We're both trying to get... A former cue.
What I started.
But Martin, in order to get to positivity, we have to deal with the negativity when it comes to toxic masculinity. And it is women who are on the receiving end of it, and it has been growing. I do feel like...
Well, most assaults are men on men, so it's men doing it, but most people who get bashed about are men. But look, it's not a competition for victimhood.
No, it's not, and I just think it comes about dealing with the culture that young men have been grown with and what they have around them. I do agree they do need more positive role models, but I think as a society we do need to see where is it going wrong for our young men? What are they missing?
Actually, Steph, I wanted to ask you about this. I've noticed recently, almost every TV programme and film I watch, all of the men seem to be, the characters seem to be sort of pathetic or embarrassing or downright horrible. And I think there is a problem. It sounds a bit trite, but no male role models on television.
No, and I think, to be honest, because there's been almost too
Thank you for saying that.
Female empowerment in that sense. I feel like the man's role in society is being diminished, and women have grown their voice, and that's kind of trickled into the entertainment world a bit. And every kind of person who does TV, whatever, they don't want it to make it seem where a man could be making a woman, you know, undermining her in that sense.
As a woman, I'm a bit sick of watching sort of brilliant, feisty, amazing women who seem pretty unrealistic, to be honest. I mean, relatable.
But you have to...
I've converted you all.
How old are you?
I'm 30.
You're 30. Yeah, you have to bear with people who have been around a bit longer, who have seen...
Absolutely.
But it's great that you're bored of it now. That's brilliant, because it's obviously quite present for you, and you see that a lot. But if you haven't seen that for a long time...
I do understand
and in the past, it might not have been. But I think you're right. I think the pendulum shouldn't swing. And what nobody should do, women shouldn't do it to men, men shouldn't do it to women. To make yourself strong and resilient, you shouldn't be pulling somebody else down. You should be, and that's the problem. But to say toxic masculinity is made up, I will pick you up on that.
It is made up.
Because, well, I don't agree with that, because I think we might not have all been sexually assaulted on the tube, but I think as women, we are all faced every day with men who will try and tell us something to our face, that will mansplain to us all the time.
There's a different phrase for that, and I can't say it on
maybe you just don't like the phrase, but an arrogance of a male-dominated situation is a real thing. that women do have to find combat.
All right, let's move on.
We've strayed from the topic.
Let's move on, and I think we could all agree we've got some gender parity. We've got some understanding going on here. This is great. You see, we can all talk about the fact that Susan's wrong.
Now you see, that's dangerous now. Right.
I'm going to move on before I end up wearing this coffee. Susan, let's get to your story about a couple always seemingly at it, Harry and Meghan.
Yes. Apparently, and if we know anything about the Sussexes, we know that anything that's in the papers, I think we've all learned now, there are leaks, they're as leaky as a cauldron, aren't they? Anything that is in the papers is because they've kind of put it out there and they want it to be known. They're kind of making it known that if an invitation to Christmas at Sandringham was offered, or summer at Balmoral, they'll take summer at Balmoral, wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? Then they may accept that. Now, that might be lovely for them, but I think as Christmas is approaching, and a lot of people watching this at home will probably be thinking of families and people that they need to see, that possibly that they kind of, could do without. So it's a family kind of situation that everybody can identify with, that you've got to have somebody kind of sharing your turkey that maybe you think you're going to have an argument with rather than pull a cracker. But yeah, I find this fascinating. I mean, the Sussexes, to me, I was one of those people who watched the wedding, just thinking what a brilliant thing this was. I was so pleased for Harry. I thought she was absolutely phenomenal. I still think she could be. I don't see any evidence of her trying to do that. But this is two people who had everything on a plate. When you saw the thousands and thousands of people who wished them well on their wedding, to have come to where they are, how you can throw away the opportunity to do good, to be amazing, to have everything that they wanted, as well. They've thrown it away so far.
Totally agree, but Steph, don't you think, though, this is just typical of them? It's like, I know we've been complete nightmares all year, but we'd love a bit of turkey at the palace, please.
Well, to be honest, I think this was always going to happen. Yeah. Like, reality was going to always hit them at some point, and more than anything, beyond the headlines, this is a family here, Prince Harry reached out to King Charles earlier this week, and they had a phone call, and apparently, like, the lines of communication is open for them. And as in with any family, you do have to try repair what's gone on. They can't be at odds with the royal families for the rest of their life. And if the royal family is willing to give them that branch of an invitation to Christmas, and they're saying they're open to it, clearly Harry and Meghan want to make amends. And why shouldn't they have that opportunity?
Do you think they should invite
Yes, I think they should invite them, because they're a part of the family.
I agree with
they
you.
are
I agree with you.
They are the rebels of the family.
I think the problem is anything that happens around the table, or any sort of situation with the royal family, that they know now, the royal family will know it'll be part of the next book, it'll be part of the next Netflix series. Well, they're trading constantly, and I don't know how they're going to stop that.
This is where King Charles needs to be a father to his son and tell him, like, this is not on. If you want to be a part of this family with your wife, you're going to have to fix up on certain things. It's not about playing for the media. It's actually him putting his foot down as a father and saying, Harry, look...
OK, on the one hand, Christmas is a time for forgiveness.
Yes, it is.
It's a time of coming together. But on the other hand, it's like, well, you didn't come to my 75th birthday.
He wasn't invited.
You just phoned me up.
They weren't invited.
And Meghan didn't come to the coronation because she
didn't want to steal the limelight. She didn't want to steal the limelight.
She didn't want to steal the limelight. The coronation. Come off it. What a load of codswallop.
I don't mean... Sorry.
Sorry. Everyone would have been concentrated on Meghan at the coronation. By her not coming, it was still a big thing. It still made headlines. So can you imagine if she came? She has a cheek to turn up. That's what would have happened.
If she'd been giving you, your family in the neck all year like this, would you say, come round and have some turkey and some plum duff, love? I wouldn't.
Well, it's all about forgiveness at Christmas.
I think the grandkids I feel sorry for. There's another piece in one of the papers today about how close King Charles is to his three grandchildren from William and Kate. And you could see that. We know that. We don't have to read it in the paper. We don't have to wait for a leak. We don't have to wait for Omid Scobie or whatever his name is to tell us all about that. Because when you watch the footage of the Jubilee thing, and you saw him bouncing Louis on his knee and the children running over to him, it's clear they have a relationship. And you see that, and your heart does break a bit, actually, for the two grandchildren of Harry and Meghan.
They don't have very much family at all, because obviously Meghan's not
because they've fallen out with everybody.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't think Doria. I think Doria's now, days are numbered, aren't they? I mean, she's the only person that Meghan haven't fallen out with. Everybody else is just persona non grata.
I don't mean to sound too sceptical, but I think if I were King Charles, I'd be a little bit worried, because Meghan and Harry's whole identity is built off spilling stories about the royal family, and obviously they've kind of run out of stories about the royal family now. They haven't seen them for years,
want to come back,
which is possibly why they want to come back.
Right. OK, let's let's move on to another story about Meghan. We've got another story about Meghan. Meghan's appearance at A-list party viewed as a slick power play. What's going on here?
Well, earlier this week, she attended the Power of Women Gala in Hollywood and LA, and she made a solo appearance. And I like this piece by Carol Graham in the Mail today, because I know Hollywood's quite fickle, and now questions are being asked. What is next for Harry and Meghan? She did allude that they've got some exciting things coming up next year.
That's Meghan's word, though, isn't it? It's exciting. I'll be the judge of that, love.
But, you know, in Caroline's piece, she talks about, you know, how are they going to make the cash? Because their deal with Netflix runs out in 2025. They've had a string of flops to their name. So it's like, what is next for Harry and Meghan? And I think when it comes to Hollywood, you're only as good as your last big hit. And because they've had so many flops now, I do think, what is next for Meghan and how are they going to be able to
And they've had so many flops
Yeah.
because they haven't put the work in. They had a podcast studio built in their Montecito mansion and they did barely a few hours' work. When she was doing a podcast, she wouldn't interview everybody herself. She only wanted to interview the famous people. She got other people, the researchers could do all the rest of it. If you want to make it big in Hollywood or indeed anywhere, it's about work. And I don't. They're like the kind of. They remind me of the teenagers that you see sometimes. Possibly people will have around their table at Christmas and see them, and they don't really want a proper job. They just want to do what. I'm going to be a TikTok influencer. No, you're not, love. But that's what they're like, and it's just like that's not a job. Go and do some real work, and then come back to me and tell me what you want to do.
That's why I do feel sorry for them, because I feel like they've got an identity crisis at the moment where they're no longer a part of the royals. They're in big Hollywood, which will drop you faster than anything. So right now they're both thinking, how do we make ourselves relevant? So they do need to align themselves with the royals.
Do some work. But they've got the biggest platform they had. I mean, it's diminishing, it seems, because people are less interested. Apparently their hits on them on social media and things are getting less and less, and I can understand that, because we've heard it all before. I mean, the man from Spotify who called them grifters he absolutely got his finger on it, if you ask me. But they still have. She's gorgeous. She's very erudite. She can speak really well. You know, he's very lovable when he wants to be. They could do so much amazing work around the planet if they wanted to. I have no idea what they think they're up to.
Well, they bang on about climate change and take a private jet, and they bang on about, you know, racism when the very proof that Meghan was warmly welcomed and loved in the royal family surely is proof
Prince
there's no
Charles
racism.
walking her down the aisle. Absolutely.
I think that's a problem. Shall we do something else that's not just about the royals?
Yes.
Suze,
yes.
Cool story about pensions. Pop icon Sandy Shaw, many of you, of course, will remember, is talking about pensions triple locks. Tell us about this.
So Sandy Shaw, who you may remember as the barefoot Eurovision winner who sang Puppet on a String, she's 76 now, and she's got involved in what sounds like a really great kind of initiative, actually. It's a manifesto for later life by campaigners' later life ambitions. And some of the things that they're calling for, they're saying basically that if you ignore pensions, obviously, at your peril, that both the government and the opposition are kind of, you know, a dereliction of duty, really. And it's something I feel quite passionate about. I mean, I'm not there yet. I'm in my 50s. But I can never understand why we don't put more effort into looking after where we're all heading, hopefully, into our old age. And we just kind of dismiss it. And yet everyone's going to get there. And what are you going to do when you get there if you haven't put the thought in?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of disquiet about the fact, you know, you've paid your stamp for your whole life, and suddenly they're nudging the age. I don't think I'll ever get a pension. I'll be 90 before I get one.
They told me that years ago, and I opted out because I was told that. And now, as I kind of, you know, as I get to late 50s, it seems it is still there.
And it is important, especially as we have an ageing population, and it's only people are living longer. And I feel like this is the kind of stuff that should be spoken about to young people from when they're young, to start thinking, one day you will be old, you won't always be this fit, and how are you going to look after yourself financially beyond the government?
And some of the things in the Later Life Manifesto, protecting the pensions triple lock is one. Tackling the housing crisis by building more retirement properties, making it easier for pensioners to move out of family homes, which could then be put on the market for younger people. Increase investment, which we touched on before, in local bus and rail service to ensure they're suitable for the elderly. End bank branch closures that help older people. They haven't got it here, but keep cash. Don't put everything on an app. Make it a choice. But not everybody wants to be able to use that. I think making things accessible for
Suze, we have to leave it there. We have to leave it there. Superb stuff, Steph.
But I was right on that, wasn't I? I was right on that.
You were right on that one, but not anything else. Anyway, it's approached top of the hour. We have much more to come. But first, let's take a look at the weather.